Look at your neighbor and say, let it out. Don't take it back home with you. I want you to throw them holy hands around somebody and tell them, I don't know, but God's getting ready to do something at your house. Oh! My God. My God. Church, I greet you tonight in the one who died on Friday. And he died until death died. 3 days later, he didn't get up with some power, but he got up with all powers. 50 days later, they were assembled in the upper room, somewhat like we are, and they was waiting and waiting. One of my favorite words, suddenly. That's what your next blessing is named. Tell your neighbor, my next blessing is named suddenly. Since you've been trying to figure out what your blessing is called, turn around and tell somebody, my next blessing is called suddenly. That ain't the right person. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you don't know it. You at house, you at the Lord's house, but he's moving at your house suddenly. Church, let's clap our hands for the angel of this house. Oh, y'all got, come on. Let's thank God for the angel of this house. Come on, y'all. Come on, Greater. Come on, St. Paul. Come on. Let's make some Friday night noise for Dr. Bishop Calvin Daniel. Yeah! Woo! It is always a blessing to be able to have this opportunity to share with my brother. He is my brother. We have so much in common because we rode and we tied sometimes. I know who I'm at, but give this road tied man a hand. Cal, I know it. You know it's bad when your own son won't clap for you. You know it's bad. It's bad. Cal didn't do no clapping for you, Doc. Cal couldn't go there with us. Listen, be seated. We have so many. Let's thank God for our choir. Rodney Evans. Come on, let's give it up for the choir. Let's give it up. Come on, y'all. No. These people drove all the way from Atlanta. Let's give them some Alabama love. My man. My man. I have so many special people here tonight. My dear sister, Pastor Vanessa Hall. Let's thank God for her. Oh my God. Come on, y'all give her some love. Pastor Vanessa Hall, yo pastor. When I walked out tonight, I just almost broke down. Stephen B. Hall and I was personal brothers, started preaching at the same time. And so it is a blessing to have you with us, and Pastor Brenda with us tonight. Gilbert, amen. And oh, y'all could do better than that. And all of I'd like for all of our pastors to stand. Bishop Cartwright, Bishop Florence, and Pastor Offord, and Pastor Sneed, and oh my God, the church, come on, let's give these people some love, and amen. Romans chapter 8 and verse number 28, and I want to begin at verse 28. And whatever the customs of the house, let's stand tonight. Let's not allow the familiar of the scriptures to make you feel unfamiliar. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, and to them that are called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed into the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, to them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified. I want to talk to you for just a moment, and I'd like for you to do something for me tonight. I want you to think on this tonight. He knows what he's doing. Just tell 5 people, he knows what he's doing. Tell somebody, he knows what he's doing. Be seated. All afternoon, a little boy was trying to put his birthday gift together that his father had given to him for his birthday. The father had given his son a picture puzzle. In this picture puzzle, there were some of the pieces in the box as he was throwing them all across the floor trying to put this picture puzzle together. Some of the pieces was bright and some was dark. Some seemed to go together, others seemed to fit nowhere. And finally, all day the little boy was trying to put his birthday gift together of this picture puzzle. He was finally frustrated, exhausted, for nothing to show for all the effort that he had been trying to put this puzzle together. So the boy gathered up all the pieces and put them into the box and rushed to his father's room and said, I can't put it together, so you try to put it together. And to the little boy's amazement, his father finally assembled the entire puzzle in just a few minutes. The boy looking at his father trying to figure out, how were you able to put it together so fast? And the father said to him, son, the reason that I was able to put the puzzle together so fast, I knew what the picture looked like all the time. He said to his son, you saw the pieces, but I saw the picture. I wonder tonight, who's in here tonight, that you cannot see the picture of your life because you have been tripping about the pieces.
It is these pieces that keeps you up at night. It is those pieces that keeps you trying to find out what's the method and madness and meaning of your life. I saw the picture when you saw the pieces. You know, ladies and gentlemen, maybe there's somebody here tonight cannot praise God tonight because it is these pieces that troubles you. You've already know that God says, I'm going to do a new thing. But what do you do when God tells you a new thing is getting ready to happen, but yet it seems like the old is still hanging around? Paul says it like this: all things, those are the pieces. According to his purpose, that's the picture. All things, those are the pieces. Whom he foreknow, he also predestinate to be conformed into the image of his son. That's the picture. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, your picture is coming. Your picture is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could just put this scripture in one thesis statement: God takes these things that in themselves that are bad, and God compounds them into the crucible of his omnipotent. He mixed them with his hands of love, and they become to us that which is good. God takes these things that are in themselves that are bad. God compounds them into the crucible of his omnipotent. He mixed them in the hands of his love, and they become to us that which is good. I wrote it in my notes that if they sit there when you say that, you might have to say that one more time. God takes these things in themselves that are bad and compounds them into the crucible of his omnipotent, and he mixed them with the hand of his love, and they become that which is good. God always able to get blessings out of blunders. God is always able to get good out of that which wasn't no good. Often it is possible to make something better out of something bad, and that's why, and that is the way God works with us. We don't often do right the first time, but he's always salvaging situations no matter how bad they look. God has always been able to take that which is nothing, and he comes in and salvage the leftover stuff that you feel like God is not going to do nothing. Oh, brothers and sisters, are you sitting here tonight perplexed, frustrated over some stuff that has happened lately to you? I come here to serve you notice that if they are tripping about what you got now, your next blessing will put them in a coma. I just need you to look down your row and tell your neighbor he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. God's made a picture. He is the master composer of your life, he's going to complete. God will not abandon that which is in you. All I know that, ladies and gentlemen, that there are those in this room tonight who do not like the options you've been left with. I know that you don't like what you've been left with. You feel like it wasn't fair. I know that you don't like the options that you're working with. I know that you feel like that you have been left short-handed. I know that you feel that you've been bamboozled and hoodwinked. I know that you feel like that you're not going to make it, but I stopped here to tell you what's to come is better than what's been. You ought to look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, what's to come is better than what's been. So if you don't even have no money tonight, I want you to throw your head back and shout on credit. Look at your neighbor. There are times that you don't know what God is doing. Sometimes you do not know what God is up to, especially when he comes in and rob you of something that you cared about. When God comes in and stuff in your life that it's times in your life that you would like to know what God is up to. But I want to tell you that you may have had a rough beginning, but God told me to tell you you're going to have a sweet ending. Or you better look at somebody tonight and tell them you may have had a rough beginning, but you're going to have a better is the ending of a thing than the beginning. I believe, I don't know who I'm talking to tonight, but I believe that most Christians don't like sometimes the stuff we go through. Don't you sit in here and don't sit here and act like you always like these things God carry us through. After all, sometime the righteous suffer. Sometime the righteous catch hell. Sometime the righteous get cancer. Sometime the righteous have setbacks. Sometime the righteous have setbacks and setups. But it is only for your comeback. Because I believe that God is always working on the backside. I said he's always working on the backside. God is always working on the backside. It's that negative side that sometimes we feel that God is against us. He knows. And look at your neighbor and say, he knows. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. I've learned a new word after COVID, because sometimes we feel like what is going on in our life has to be an accident. But I've learned a word called providence. Providence. When I talk about the providence of God, two things come to mind. Number one, what do you do when God authorizes something? I said, you missed that. And then secondly, not only what do you do when God authorizes something, but what do you do when God allows it? He authorizes it and he allows it. I say he authorizes it and then he allows it. What do I mean about that? That word providence. Providence. Let the church say providence. Providence. It comes out of two words. When we hear the word providence, we hear the first word pro, meaning before. Video, meaning to see. So when I say providence, it is God seeing stuff before He's already saw your video before. He's already seen it beforehand to provide what you have not able to see. He's already provided. You ought to shout right there that he's already shout. You ought to shout not about what you got in your pocket. I want you to shout about what you don't have that's already been provided. So if providence means video, that means that we ought to give God a praise. Somebody said, well, I don't know what you're talking about, praise. That means praising him before you see what it is. I need somebody to look down your road tonight and say, neighbor, I got a feeling tonight. If you just go ahead and start hollering right now. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you ought to holler right now before you see it. Put your arms around somebody and tell your neighbor, you ought to holler before it. Before your miracle show up. Throw your head back and holler now. It's no accident. It's no accident. We know that all things are working together. And Paul writes this to these believers in Rome. He wanted them to be clear on what God is and how God operates. He wanted them to know that God is the source of all creation and that all creation depends upon him, that God is sovereign and God is in all creation and all over creation. God has chosen to be involved. And listen, God has chosen to involve himself in your life. God has chosen to involve himself, because usually when you start going through stuff, you will notice the people who will not get involved in your sickness. That's when you start seeing people bag out. But tell somebody, God tonight is getting ready to get involved at your house. And you ought to look at somebody and tell your neighbor, God is getting ready to get involved in everything that you are going through. And so I want to unpack. I said, 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 I want to unpack this verse because I want to show you that there's a few observations that I want to bring to your attention. And that is that he's working to develop us. I said, he's working to develop us. Let the church say, he's working. I said, he's working. He's working, and we know. Look at the people that are indicated here. Notice the word "and we." I want to know, Pastor Offord, who is this we crowd? Because he indicates some people here. He said "and we." The question is, who is this we? And I want to know, is any we sitting on the road tonight? Because I want to know is the we crowd is here, because it's some people that he's indicating here. He said, and we know he's referring to those who love God and those that are called according to his purpose. John Piper says it like this, that we here is those ones who are the beneficiary. The beneficiary. The beneficiary. Somebody ought to know something about that. The beneficiary. I don't care what the devil is trying to do to you. You are the beneficiary. In other words, you getting ready to get your stuff because it belongs to you. It's because your name in the policy. You are the beneficiary, which means it's just a few more days that you're going. I want to tell somebody, I got a feeling that your next blessing is coming any day now. Because that ain't the right person. Put your arms around somebody and tell your neighbor, I'm not only the beneficiary, but because the benefactor has made me the beneficiary, I'm getting ready to get the benefit. Y'all missed it. I said the benefactor has put me in this, oh my God. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you don't know it, but you ought to shout about the benefits. You ought to shout about the benefits. I want y'all to do one thing right quickly. I want everybody to stand up and sit back down. Stand up and sit back down. The reason that I wanted y'all to stand up and sit back down, because it's time for you to get up off of what's been holding you all year long. Yeah! I didn't mean that. And we are this chosen generation, this royal priesthood, oh, this holy nation, this peculiar people. Look at the people that are indicated. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I'm next. I'm next. No. Look at him and tell him, I'm next. I'm next, because he's called you out of darkness, and whom he called out of darkness into this marvelous light. But Pastor Eugene Florence, not only do we see the people that are indicated, can I preach it like I feel it? But look at the possibility, Pastor Hall, and we know. Put your hands on yourself and know. No, we know. We know. We know. We know. We know. We know. Now I had a long discussion with Paul as I was making my way here tonight. And so me and Paul got in a serious dialogue. And I said, Paul, I'm going to St. Paul. I'm going to get to this part where you said, and we know, but what I don't understand, Paul, is why did you say what you said in verse 26? Because look like verse 26 and verse 28, they don't go together. Because in verse 26, you said we know not what we ought to pray for. You said you don't know what to pray for. Now, Paul, don't embarrass me, because you just said in verse 26 that we know not what we ought to pray for. But then when you get to verse number 28, you said we know. Man, make up your mind on which way you want to go. He said, well, Brother Carter, what you got to understand is that when I was talking in verse 26, I was talking to you in the flesh. Because the flesh do not know what it ought to pray for. The flesh don't know what to ask God for, because the flesh is selfish. But when I finally got to verse 28, I shifted. I shifted from the flesh to the spirit. For the spirit knows what to say. It knows how to intercede on your behalf. In other words, the Spirit knows your infirmity. He knows what you are, and we know. We know. Now, this church, just walk with me for just a moment, because that word "no," everybody said "no," because I want you to know tonight that ain't nothing that's happening to you that's by accident. Everybody say, I know. I know. Look at somebody and say, I know. That word "know" means to see, to perceive with the eye. It means to turn the eyes and the mind and the attention to the thing. It means, oh, bless his name. It means to pay attention. It means to observe. In other words, to know in this passage speaks of that now I have come into full knowledge and I've gained some perceptions about the observation. In other words, to know means I didn't know last year, but I know now. I understand that I didn't understand what was going on, but I know he understands that life and the circumstances that I'm going through, I know now. I know. And you know, this is not Paul's first time using this word "no." I said, this is not his first time using this word "no." In 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse number 4, he said, I know nothing about myself. And this is not the first time that Paul has used the word "no." In 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and 12, he said, I know in part, and then I shall know. This is not the first time that Paul uses the word "no." In Romans 7 and 18, I know that in me. This is not the first time that Paul uses this word "no." In 1 Corinthians 4 and 4, I know nothing of myself. This is not the first time that Paul uses the word "no." He uses this in 2 Corinthians and verse number 1 and chapter 1 and verse 7. He said, for we know that as we share in your... This is not the first time that Paul says that something about the "no." He says it in 2 Corinthians 5 and 1. For we know that if this earthly house of this tabernacle is dissolved, that we have another. This is not the first time that Paul uses the word "no." In Philippians 3 and 10, he said that I may know him in the power of his resurrection and in the fellowship of his. This is not the time that he uses the word "no." He uses it in Colossians chapter 4 and verse number 6, that we may know that how we ought to use. This is the first time that Paul uses the word "no." He uses it in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 4. He said that we know that we have been chosen by God. Oh, this is not the first time that Paul uses this word "no." In 1 Thessalonians and chapter 2 verse 2, he said, as you know that we have the boldness of God that we should declare the gospel. Oh, this is not the first time that Paul uses this word "no." Colossians, he uses in Galatians 2:16, for we know that the person is now not justified by. This is not the first time, Pastor Hall, that he uses this word. He uses it in 1 Timothy 1 and 12. For I know that whom I believe, and that I'm persuaded that he's able to keep. I don't know about you all, but the Lord told me to tell you, give him a no praise. That's a praise that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know. Put your arms around somebody and tell your neighbor, I got a feeling that by the time you get home, God's going to work it out. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, he knows the process. Oh, he knows the process. Two more things. Two more things. Two more things. Two more things. Tell your neighbor, he want to say two more things. Not only he's working, Pastor Daniel, to develop us, but he's willing to deliver us. This is when I'm getting ready to lose my mind. Because not only is he's working to develop me, but he's willing to deliver us. Notice what Paul said, all things work together for good. All things. Look at the coverage. 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 You know how sometimes when you walk around, I'm covered. But I want you to know tonight, tell your neighbor, check the coverage out. The coverage is, Pastor Gilbert, all things. Paul didn't say a few things or some things or many things or most of the things. He didn't say happy things, sad things. He didn't say when you had a thing in your life. He said all things. Oh, look at the coverage. Look at the coverage. You know why y'all can't shout? It's because you cannot see glory in all things. Because the truth of the matter, all things don't feel good. Don't you sit here acting like that. Sometimes it don't feel good. It don't feel good. But Paul did not say that it was for you to feel good. It was for good. There's a difference between feel good and for good. I said there's a difference between feel good. Maybe that's why you can't understand, because you don't feel good, but what you don't feel good about is for good, which means it ain't gonna kill you. You're not gonna die, because your best days are in front of you and your worst days are before you. I dare you to turn around and tell somebody to take a picture of me tonight, because this is the last time you will see me feeling like this. Get your neighbor and say, take your picture, take your camera out tonight, because I got a feeling that it's a Kodak moment. I beg you to turn around and tell your neighbor, if you could see what the Lord is doing, is for good. You know, people say, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. You know that's a lie. When them Negroes were lying on you, that wasn't all good. But I tell you what, it was for good. Because what God told me to tell you tonight, that you're going to outlive your enemy. Y'all don't even know when to shout. I said you're going to outlive your enemy. Put your arms around somebody and tell them it's for good. It's for good. You know, well, listen to what Paul says so that we can put this in proper context. Lest you all thinking I'm taking this out of context, because I truly do not want to take this text out of context, but I do want to put it in its proper context, because for you to understand what Paul is talking about, these all things, you got to go back and read verse number 7:18. The suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in you. That's the all things. Verse 23 says that even we ourselves groan within. That's the groaning, the suffering. But then Paul says in verse 26 that likewise the Spirit helpeth our infirmity, that all things. Verse 35, shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine? I'm trying to get to y'all all things, because some of y'all don't know what it is. Shall nakedness, arrows or sword, neither death nor life. I wish somebody that went to Sunday school could help me walk it out. Nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, Lord have mercy, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor anything, nor anything. It's them all things, but what you don't realize that the all things is not going to stop your anything. Because how many of you all ever walked up in here? How many of y'all in here tonight came in here, but you're not going to let the all things stop you from giving God on anything praise? And look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I got to holler right now because I got a feeling and the Lord told me to tell you that 55 people, if you just get up and holler right quick, God told me to tell you he's turning it. 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 Oh Lord. Let's look at somebody and tell somebody he's turning it. 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 Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor you ought to holler right now because he's Paul puts it like this. Paul puts it like this in Ephesians, like who worketh, this is what God doing. He's working all things according to the counsel of his will. Lord have mercy. Romans tells us that that God is freely getting ready to give us all things. And we getting ready to overcome. But then, oh bless his name. Look at the coverage, but look at the connections. And all things work together. Together. Coverage, all things. What? Together. Connection. Coverage, connection. Coverage. So when anybody asks you how you're making it, you need to tell them. If anybody asks you how your day going, you tell them. Anybody say, how you feeling since you got put outdoors? What happens when you got divorced and you didn't know how you were going to make it? What happened when a loved one left you and you didn't know how you were going to make it? God did some. I got a feeling tonight that if you would just turn around and do that in front of somebody, I believe that they'll jump up and shout tonight. I don't know about somebody, you ought to just, if you don't know it, but you ought to just say, you ought to turn around and look at somebody tonight. You ought to look at somebody tonight. God told me to tell you for 30 years, this is what he's been doing. For 30 years, he's been turn around and tell somebody, I got a feeling tonight. This is what's going on at your house. Oh, Lordy. Yeah. Oh, Lordy. Yeah. Sit. And we know that Paul says, though our outward man perish. I got to see where I can get off on the exit. 'cause I'm on the highway. But tell your neighbor, for this is what Paul said, for which cause we faint not. Though our outward man perish. Somebody ought to say yet. That ought to say, look at your neighbor and say, for yet our inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light afflictions, oh Lord have mercy, worketh for us for a moment. They worketh for us a far exceeding eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things that are seen. Got one more thing to tell you. Not only we see the coverage, not only we see the connections, but can I tell you about the conclusion? Because what you've been going through has a conclusion. And your condition is not your conclusion, because, in other words, there is the conclusion is that it's working for your good. Listen to how Isaiah said, I know the beginning and the ending of a thing in the between, for his ways are not my ways and his thoughts are not my thoughts. In other words, isn't it amazing how God can use the devil and God can use it for our good? Well, I'm reminded, I'm about finished, y'all. I'm reminded of this old little lady who lived by an atheist, who did not believe in God, Dr. Daniel, but she, every day, she would get out on a porch and shout about, I know the Lord will make a way. And so one day, the old lady ran low on her grocery, and she could not get any grocery, and so she didn't know how she was going to make it. No food in the pantry, nothing in the closet. But that old lady went to church and heard the preacher preach, I know the Lord will make a way somehow. She came back, sat on a porch, looked up to heaven and said, Lord, I went to church today, and the old preacher told me that I know the Lord. But she lived beside an atheist, beside an atheist man who did not believe in God. He came looking around, hearing what the old lady said, so he decided that he would run uptown and buy some grocery. Went uptown and got the lady old grocery. I'm just trying to show you how God can work things out. Man went up there, bought the grocery, come running, put it on the old lady's porch. And the old lady come out on the porch and saw all of the grocery. And she said, Lord, thank you for sending me my grocery. Oh, here come the old atheist running across the yard. Say, old lady, God didn't send you your grocery. I went uptown. I went uptown and bought you your grocery. God did not send you your grocery. I bought it. She backed up and prayed another prayer. And she said, Lord, I want to thank you for sending me my grocery. And you made the devil pay for it. I don't know about y'all, but let's get out of here now. I want you to know tonight that God will turn it around. Lord, and I don't know about y'all tonight, but I praise the Lord because watch what Paul said, that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. And I don't know about y'all, but can you turn around and tell somebody, say, neighbor, I got a got a feeling what the devil meant for your bad, God, God is getting ready to turn it around. Why don't you tell somebody, say, neighbor, look at me. Yeah, things is getting a little better. Every day I'm getting a little stronger. Let's get out of here. Yeah, 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 yeah. Why don't you turn around, stand on your feet, and throw your arms around somebody. Tell your neighbor, say, neighbor, I got a feeling that the Lord is getting ready to turn it around. Can you stand? Can you stand? Can you stand? Why don't you put your arm around somebody and say, neighbor, I don't know about you, but you ought to shout about it. Hey! Yeah! Yeah! Shout! Shout about it! Shout about it! Can I get a witness? Tell somebody, say, neighbor, give me your hand. When I think of the goodness of yeah, and all that he done for me, can you go ahead and holler about it? If you know he been good, go ahead and holler. Go ahead and holler. Hey! Hey! Holler. Yeah. Yeah. See, if you know he been good, can you jump one time? If you know he been good, can you jump 2 times? If you know he been good, can you jump 3 times? But if he keep making a way, if he keep making a way, hey! Hey! He made a way. He made a way. Yeah. Yeah. He made a way. Put your arms around somebody and tell him he keep making a way. Put your arms around somebody and tell him he keeps. I want you to do something for me tonight. I want everybody to just turn and tell somebody he knows what he's doing. I said he knows. No. Go across the aisles and tell somebody, I know you don't know, but he knows. Get out of your seat and tell somebody he knows what he's doing. Get out of your seat tonight and tell somebody he knows. He knows. He knows. He knows. Put your arms around somebody and say, he knows. He knows. He knows. He knows. Good Lord.
After 30 years, he knows what he's doing. Tell somebody, I got a feeling it's turning for you. It's turning. Listen, if you are out of the ark of safety, you do not know who Jesus is, tonight will be a good time to come to Jesus. If you're not saved tonight, if you're not born again, this will be a good night to come. Why don't you just turn around and ask somebody, are you saved or you born again? That's it. Are you saved or you born again? How many of you was blessed tonight